Welcome everyone. Welcome once again to this exciting panel, Digital Marketing in 2023. I think the timings couldn't be better for having this panel, given we have just started 2023 and we couldn't have asked for better panelists. Let me quickly create with you the agenda for today's session. We'll start with a quick introduction to the panelists. Then we will get into what are we going to talk about when we say digital marketing in 2023. And inside of that, I will have certain pointers for panelists to share from their experience. And I'll share what are the three elements of digital marketing in 2023 we are going to cover. And towards the end, for at least 15-20 minutes, we'll have audience Q&A. And for you to ask a question, you don't need to wait till end. Though we will cover most of the questions in the end, but at any point in time you have a question, you can just type in the questions panel in this GoToWebinar control panel interface. So that you can post your question anytime you have a question, but towards the end we will try to cover hopefully all the questions, right? Now, digital marketing in 2023, what are we going to cover? One, the first area is, before we get into 2023, I'm sure it's always best to learn from what happened in 2022. So we are going to, summarize the lows and highs of 2022, and I'll talk about what are those areas. Then we will speculate how 2023 is likely to happen. I'm sure, especially in an area like digital marketing, it's impossible to predict what's going to happen. That's why we have specifically used the term speculating 2023. Now, within that, we'll end before we open for audience Q&A with some open discussion on trending topics like Chat GPT. I'm sure it would have reached to at least some percentage of us, how AI is, disrupting this industry. Given many of you are here who have interest in starting your career or growing your career, so that's another area also we'll talk about. And then we'll get into Q&A. Now, first thing I want to do is, I want to begin with an audience poll for us to get a sense of the audience we have. So I'll take 30 seconds so that all of you could respond here. And that would make this session more efficient, effective, because the panelists would know the composition of today's panel. So can I request all of you to respond to this poll so that we can make this session more personalized, more customized to the kind of audience we have. Great, 65% of you have already voted. I'll wait for a couple of more seconds so that those who have not yet could do that too. Right, okay, another 3 seconds before we close this poll. All right, last 3 seconds, guys. Okay, great. Let me just close the poll and share with you the results. So here is the composition of the audience today. We have around 19% students or freshers. So I'm sure all of you are here to look into what is the opportunity of digital marketing for you. 30% are sales and marketing professionals. Good to see that 28% are digital marketing practitioners already. That's relatively a much higher number than we normally get. Maybe the topic, got you to be invited to this. Then 15% CXO or entrepreneurs, and 8% into other areas. I'm sure this is very useful for our panelists to make this session more customized based on the audience. Thanks, everyone. Now, so as I shared, we want to begin by looking into completing or summarizing 2022. Now, what do I mean by that is, we look into these areas, right? So like, has there been a significant shift in online behavior change, shift in media spend, which mediums might have got more spending versus the others, which might have, moved backward? What are the new tools and channels which have emerged? What are the channels which have lost their weightage? Uh, Areas like marketing technology, the role of technology in marketing, how has been the online offline integration happening? I'm sure most of us would have seen, like, Zomato, Blinkit, and then every brand riding on to doodh mangoge, doodh denge. So that was, I think, one great example of online offline integration. Then definitely areas which grew well in this time are influencer marketing, video marketing, personalization. Of course, mobile has been growing significantly. Then what are the industry verticals? Like D2C e-commerce is one, definitely very fast growing areas, which is consuming a good percentage of media spend. Then tech companies, B2B companies, SaaS companies, ed tech until the last quarter, I would say, has been in the limelight for using digital marketing. Likewise, what are the industries which are more active in consuming digital as a medium? And any shift towards measurement analytics, like Google Analytics is undergoing a shift. And I'm sure like that, tools and metrics, there have been shifts. So those are the areas we want to talk about. Now, before we get into our panelists talking about, let me quickly introduce. So we have Sanjay Mehta. Sanjay, I know for, I think, significantly long period. And fortunately, I know all the panelists for a long period. And if you would have gone through their profile, decade is the minimum experience they have, far more than that. Sanjay has been a veteran of digital media since, I think, 1990, that period, and into digital marketing for over 2 decades now. Sanjay is a joint MD, joint CEO of Miram, which is one of the largest digital marketing agencies and part of the large group within digital. And he has, before the agency, he has an entrepreneurial experience of starting, I think, one of the first e-commerce platforms long time back. And it's my pleasure to have Sanjay, sharing his experience of how 2022 has been and how 2023 looks like. Welcome, Sanjay. Thank you so much for being part of this exciting panel.
Thank you, Pradeep.
Great.
Pleasure to be here.
Same here. Then we have Prantik. Prantik, thank you for joining us from Singapore. Again, Prantik has been an entrepreneur, now being part of a large agency. So he started Happy Marketeer 2011, which got sold to Dentsu 4 years ago. He's heading CXM part of Dentsu Singapore. And I'm sure, given he's in Singapore, which is a kind of a hub for entire Southeast Asia, there is a lot of learning and interesting experience he has, which we are going to learn from. Thank you so much, and welcome, Prantik, for being part of this session today.
Thank you, Pradeep. Pleasure to join in from Singapore, and very good, I suppose, afternoon or evening to most of you all. Looking forward to an interesting chat.
Great. Though for some reason Rajiv has not been able to log in, and I hope he will join in the due course of this panel. So I'll again also introduce Rajiv. Rajiv has been, I think, one of the youngest person to enter into digital. I think while he was in college, he started digital marketing. And I remember when we started agency almost 12 years ago, he had also started his first agency. And then he moved on to grow really, really fast. And his agency got acquired as well. And now he is running RD&X network, where he is doing a lot of exciting work on emerging areas using technology. I would personally, would love to hear from his experience and what he has been doing. Honestly, I have not gotten into knowing the details of what all has been doing, but I know a lot of exciting stuff he is doing using technology and digital. So hopefully he would be part of it and share his experience. Looking forward to that. Now, Sanjay, I would invite you to share from your experience, maybe taking 4 or 5 minutes, some of the areas within this for you to summarize 2022 for us. Uh, Over to you, Sanjay.
Sure. Thank you, Pradeep. So, first of all, it's really good to be back on a digital Vidya webinar. I mean, I've done a lot of them, but it's been a while since I did the last one, so it feels like coming back home. And like you mentioned, we go back a long way. We've done some great events and other programs together. So, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I think to 2022, I think I would say like most years these days, it's been a year of a lot of ups and downs. Like you think the year begins at a certain trajectory, and then it goes through like a roller coaster with a lot of positives and negatives through the year. But looking at some of these ideas which you have on the screen here, I would focus on. I mean, each of this bullet is actually a webinar subject by itself. So obviously, we're not going to go into too much detail. But two, three things that would stand out for me. One is personalization. I think personalization has definitely been a big factor and is becoming increasingly so, supporting the idea of people having less time, less attention span, and a huge clutter of content and brand communication that they hit. It's very important for any marketer to create any kind of interest for the target audience to be as relevant and as specific as possible, and which has seen the increasing rise of personalization, whether it's in the way the advertising shows up, what kind of advertising anybody sees. So it's not, it's never been, digital has never been about one size fits all, but it's also not been about, like bulk cohorts. It's more and more becoming very specific, very individual targeting of content and advertising. Also connected to it has been a huge increase again in native advertising, which also is sort of, when you're saying a podcast, for example, when you're listening to a podcast, you don't even realize that as a part of the podcast, an advertising content has got slipped in, but it's very contextual to the podcast, it's very relevant, and you feel that it's made exactly for you because you're listening to this podcast. Obviously, you have a certain interest in the subject, and in that sense, it's personalized. Same goes for actual content on all digital platforms, whether it's a website or an app or whatever. You're seeing content catered to your needs based on your previous sort of history or what your interests are. So it's all about making sure that we share relevance to the users. And MarTech is a big element of enabling this. So MarTech is a tool which is enabling us to embrace personalization. And again, as a trend, I would say that it is definitely an area which is rising very rapidly. In 2022 is when we saw a huge increase in clients who want to embrace MarTech and MarTech skills. Of course, clients continue to be at various levels of maturity. So there are still clients who are taking their initial baby steps into the world of MarTech. But then you also have clients at the other extreme where they are using MarTech extremely well and to very measurable improvement in performance on whatever area which they are focusing on. So that's been, I mean, I would say that for any brand, any marketer who's on this, if they have not really got into a strategy or a proper direction on MarTech, that's one of the areas that they definitely need to focus on. And the last thing I can mention, because there's a lot of topics, and I'm sure Prantik and Rajiv has joined. So hey, Rajiv. We'll hear from them as well. But one last part is obviously influencer marketing. I would say is that it is literally becoming a part of almost all campaigns today. From having been something nice to do, from being something where you have 100 rupees and maybe you'll experiment with 5, 10 on influencer marketing. It's becoming for a lot of brands, and surprisingly, brands that you would not conventionally associate with influencer marketing, but even those very technical brands, very B2B brands, also utilizing a lot of KOLs and influencer marketing. So these are some of the some of my viewpoints just in my 5 minutes. I hope I managed in 5 minutes. So just let the ball on this. Yeah.
Great, Sanjay. Thank you so much for sharing from your experience. Yeah. Welcome, Rajiv. I hope you've been there and listened to what I shared. So
Yes,
we are.
I, yes, I had some trouble connecting. Sorry for joining late, guys. Apologies, but hopefully I can add value. Hi, Sanjay, long time,
Hi,
and hi, Pranti.
Hi, Rajiv.
Great. Yeah. Great. Thanks. Welcome, Rajiv. Yeah, Prantik, would you go next and take 4 5 minutes and share from your experience about summarizing 2022?
Sure, Pradeep. No, I think Sanjay's obviously added a lot of interesting perspective from my lens, sitting in Singapore and working with Southeast Asian clients. I think if I look at exactly a year ago in this part of the world, obviously we were coming out of the lockdown. So I think fundamentally at a macro level, businesses were sort of, beginning to come out of that cautious zone. But at the same time, at a macro financial level, starting Jan end, I think the market started, sort of going in a very different direction. And as an Indian, as an NRI sitting here, you saw the Indian markets do so well, but at the US macro level, things obviously started going south. And especially if we were doing work with, VC-backed startups, which we do here, uh, again, there were a lot of freezes, and we're sort of still sort of feeling that winter in this part of the world. A lot of sort of whilst COVID sort of phase went away, I think financial cautiousness has still remained in this part of the world, right? Because here, just to add context to my sort of 2 3 trends, we typically work with three buckets of clients, right? We have the MNCs. There are 7,000 of them in Singapore who sort of have Singapore as their APAC headquarters. We have VC-backed startups in the region like Shopee and Grab and some of those, and then we have some of the local giants, especially for the first two, where there is a lot of US public market or private market money influence, that cautiousness came in. In that backdrop, the 3 4 trends that we saw in 2022, one is, moment you have that sort of cautiousness, I think marketing, as we have seen, typically tends to be one of the first or second checkpoints to sort of, hey, can we either cut down investments or can we get more for the same dollar? So one of the things we saw here, which was, I think, pretty much core to what we do as an agency, is on the measurement analytics side. I think a lot of the big clients or even the venture-backed startups, they would basically want to really start understanding, in terms of attribution. So we do a lot of work alongside Google in terms of attribution analysis, just to understand, look, you have a marketing mix, you do so much on n number of media channels, organic, you do content marketing, what's working, what's not. And one of the things we're seeing maturity in this part of the world, it's still very early days, but we're beginning to see people move away from last click attribution, right? For those of you sort of new to this, typically, let's say a lead of yours clicks on a Facebook ad and comes and becomes a lead or a customer, you tend to think Facebook is the only thing that's worked. But guess what? Maybe the TV ad, maybe the maybe the mobile ad, or maybe the airport ad at Changi Airport has had an influence. So with, I think, data-driven measurement that Google Analytics 360 or GA4 as we transition, I think the attribution analysis has come in pretty handy. Now, it's been a very interesting conversation because, a lot of our marketing clients, firstly, to them, these platforms are relatively still very new because they're not used to it. They're looking at brand measurement, they're looking at brand uplift, etc., which is important. But if you don't look at attribution modeling, you really don't know what's working, what's not from a conversion point of view. So that, I think, the macroeconomic factors I spoke about started sort of forcing businesses, the CXOs, the CMOs to sort of look at, what's working, what's not, and that led to some sort of zero-based budgeting, which typically a lot of marketers said, hey, last year I spent $100, let's say, on channel A. This year I will increase or decrease by $10. But that is an incremental approach, right or wrong? That's an incremental approach. Zero-based approach budgeting would say, look, let's look at attribution and let's decide if I had to restart everything from this year, where would I sort of put my bets in? So that at a macro level is one. The other two, I would sort of say is, from a shift in behavior perspective, I think in this part of the world, for example, channels like TikTok, suddenly there is, or I would broadly classify social commerce. I see a huge amount of, uplift in Indonesia, in Thailand, and these could be via TikToks, and or it could be, you have, for example, WeChat or you have Kakao Talk, etc. These messaging chatting apps suddenly have become informal or formalized commerce channels. And so we're having a lot of conversations with our large brands or smaller brands saying, look, your brand.com or your partnerships with the Amazons and Lazadas are great, but guess what? 25 to 30% of your transactions are happening through messengers, through TikToks, etc. So you suddenly can't ignore them. You have to have a content, a creative, and a media strategy for that. So that's something I think a lot of our 2022 conversations from a behavior and media shift that happened. The last thing that I would sort of talk about is, which again, it's been a pet topic of mine in general over the last decade since I've run sort of Happy Marketer, is, I'm a big believer in organic. As much as, paid, has its powers, uh, unless and until you sort of have a very tight funnel. I've always believed whether you have the money or not, because even we as Happy Marketer, we never had, we are bootstrapped. We never had the money, but we put in a lot of effort in our own organic content, our own SEO. And if you get that right, it can pay rich dividends for a long, long time. And again, I think the macroeconomic situation, when your VC money dries up or, your CFO says, look, our marketing budgets are freeze, you want to find ways to drive value without expensive paid media spends. So we started having a lot more organic conversations across the board, be it the large FMCGs or the small startups. And to me, I like that because, that sort of instills a discipline. You want to make the most of whatever marketing bug that you have. And organic, paid media, I always say it's very powerful, but it can be an expensive drug because the moment you stop paid, your pipe sort of dries. But if you do your organic and your SEO well, it can pay a rich dividend. So I'll sort of take a pause there. Fundamentally, measurement, attribution, and within that, I would say, clients, obviously Google has introduced GA4. So some of the mature clients are transitioning to GA4. Next is social commerce. And third is, focus or refocusing back on organic.
Great, Prantik, and thank you for summarizing yourself. And interesting to know, I'm sure you sitting in Singapore has brought in elements which people sitting in India would not otherwise foresee. Thanks a ton. Yeah, Rajiv, would love to hear from your experience of 2022.
Great. So actually, I've 2022 is an interesting year because the last 2 years I've actually moved from being an agency entrepreneur to a platform entrepreneur. I currently run a platform called Rebid, which unifies martech and adtech. So my understanding and perspective is sort of twofold. One, of course, from my 14 years of experience from the agency side of the business, and then as a platform player, the conversations are very different. And luckily, we've met at least 200 marketers over the last 1 year in 2022 globally, right? So I think I'll keep this crisp and to the point, but I'll go over each of the points on the screen. I think online behavior has shifted from mobile first to mobile only, right? You would find many consumers who from morning to night are consuming all their content on mobile, don't use any other device except for when they have to use a laptop for work purposes, right? And of course, some of these consumers will be in the younger bracket, right? But I would be not wrong in saying that even when younger consumers or consumers in India are watching TV, they are on their mobile. Right? So that multi-screen consumption with screen is having more of their attention. Anybody's guess is great, right? I'm not someone who would say that TV has their attention or mobile. In that behavior, I think um, uh, distracting content, which is uh, swipe based, whether you call them short form videos, whether you call them Instagram posts, whether you call them reels, whether you call them TikTok videos, those are taking over the world from every perspective. So today, if you look at even our behaviors, we are doing the same. That it's called the rabbit hole of digital content, where you go into one video and another video, and this is magnified for the rest of the world because India doesn't have TikTok, because they have TikTok and reels both, right? It's called the rabbit hole of content. Hence the shift in media spends. There's a massive shift in media spends for two reasons. One, because privacy regulations by Apple globally has meant that Facebook the first time had to lay off 11,000 people. And second, because of both commerce advertising, or what you call as retail media, or Amazon ads for those who need an example, and the rise of short form content in terms of TikTok, if you see the top 5 global advertisers, it's Google, Meta, Alibaba, TikTok, and Amazon. And then the rest long tail, right? Of course, this is different in India, but even in India, you will see local players like ShareChat is also increasing its expression as a player, right? You will see in India as well, there is a bifurcation into programmatic quite a bit, right? And when I'm talking about shift in media spends, there's a lot more fragmentation on the programmatic side as well. So there definitely DV360 is the largest programmatic behemoth globally, which is Google's own platform. But then there are a bunch of programmatic players. I believe every player which has first party data, right? Whether you're an e-commerce player or you are a retail media player or any other player, will become an ad platform. Case in point, Marriott last year announced that they are launching their own ad platform, right? Marriott is a hotel group, but it announced that. So I believe that and you will have further and further siloization as far as ad platforms is concerned. In Southeast Asia, there's Lazada, Shopee, they all have their ad platforms as well. So that is my belief. Coming to new tools and channels, I think more and more types of ad types, ad platform types, ad engagement types, touching base with consumers at different part of the consumer life cycle and journey is going to pop up. There's already WhatsApp, there is already Messenger, there's already retail media. There's going to be tons more, causing a huge complexity, and there will be siloed tools and siloed channels also trying to solve for that. I see siloization as a massive theme of 2022 because everybody is going to take control. Ad business is a massive business. Apple is rumored to be launching its own DSP, which is it already has Apple search ads. I pretty much believe everybody's going to do that, right? When it comes to martech and online offline integration, it's actually become far easier in 2022 to actually bring in your offline data. What is still fairly challenging is connecting the dots. So how do you connect the same consumer who shops with you offline and online, on app, on web, when you don't have ad signal for him, when you don't have data due to privacy from him, right? So addressability is a major concern, right? So the way I would look at it is the first 3 points I was talking largely about the complexity that brings into advertising due to siloization. Martech, adtech, and online integration talks about more about addressability. How do you address the right consumer on the right platform at the right time? And that has become more and more challenging as well. I think influencer marketing has matured in 2022. There is systems, processes, platforms, all of that. In India, I could count 4 or 5 or 6 influencer agencies that have had their own platforms, and they are developing it at a greater speed because of the availability of tech talent in this space. I definitely think it's a great growing sector. The challenge still continues to be the gray areas in influencer marketing, where if you're still counting tweets and reach of tweets, or reels and reach of reach, the impact of influencer marketing has not translated to the bottom funnel, and that's going to be questioned more and more as the budgets come under crunch in globally, right? And I have my own views on personalization. I believe personalization cannot be done as long as you don't connect all your data points about the customers in a single profile and then segment that profile, right? Which means that CDPs will continue to grow globally. And in 2022 also, they have seen a lot of buzz and growth, in my view. Finally, I think I totally agree with the points Prantik made on attribution. One out of 2 meetings I have done in the last year with marketers globally, attribution has been a word that they have mentioned as their biggest pain point. So in measurement and analytics, I think attribution continues to be the biggest pain point of 2022, and it is something that we must look to solve in the future. Overall, I think the budgets from these players, B2C, e-commerce, SaaS, and EdTech, you are going to see a fall in them because there's a funding window at least for the first 6 months of this year. But in general, there'll be a larger focus from 2022 to now on effectiveness. Yeah, so I'll stop there.
Great, Rajiv. Thank you so much for covering everything. And I'm sure, as all of you shared, given the recession happening as well now, measurement, while that's a complex, becomes more important. And so let's look into 2023 inside of that. And I would want each one of you to spare, 3-4 minutes maximum to maybe share one or two highlights which you would want our audience to focus on, and what is recommended approach, what should they avoid, what should they be doing, rather than, we've looked into all. Now if they were to maximize the opportunity of digital in 2023, what do you recommend? Sanjay, will go with you again.
Sure. So, what I believe is that the more things change, the more they remain the same at some level. So especially when it comes to user behavior, right? With all the tools and all the technology, etc., finally, it's a human behavior influence change that we are trying to achieve as marketers, to get people to react to your brand communication, to probably go and buy your product, etc. And like when we're talking about personalization, the need for personalization, I think where it stems from is that a consumer wants to know what's in it for him when he or she sees your communication. And in an increasingly busy world, she wants to know it soon. So whether it's short form videos that get to the point, whether it's stories on any platform, whether it's messaging, it needs to hit the nail fast and quick. So the communication part is something which, there was a time when you would have a long story, etc. But I think today, to make your consumer react, that's one part to continue to focus on. Uh, Omni-channel marketing has been a jargon for a longest of time, but I think it is, taking the jargon away to, like, in a way, like the way Raji was talking about, aggregating consumer behavior in all the consumer data points in one place. Similarly, for a consumer to see your brand in a very consistent way as she experiences it online, offline, on television, or in print, in a retail store, at a marketplace, and see the same kind of communication, same kind of messaging, same kind of memory refreshers about your brand is important, and which is easier said than done, because I think, organizationally, brands are structured differently. There are different people having different ownership, and while it might seem so, like a no-brainer, to get it actually happen, it takes a while, with organizations. So that would be the second thing in terms of, especially, I mean, the do's and don'ts to me are, I would say, a little, maybe a little controversial, if I may say so. But a lot of energy went last year into some of these hype areas of metaverse and NFTs and all that. Now, while it's always, marketers, when they have money in the pocket, definitely want to not miss out. There's a huge FOMO factor that if my competitor is getting their presence on Meta, I can't be left behind, etc. But it's the dynamics of our digital space. If anything, it just constantly changes and constantly new things come up. Do you need to be reactive as a marketer, or do you really want to assess the impact of a new technology or a new platform for your brand, for the relevance? Is your audience there? What is it going to do? I mean, we've had the strangest of requests from some of our clients in terms of what they wanted to do on metaverse, just because everybody was doing so. And honestly, I mean, I'm not trying to take a stand that it's good, bad, or no. Because anytime I take a stand, sometimes the next year I get proven wrong, because it's always a constantly changing space. But I think it just pace yourself to,
Sanjay, I would love
sorry.
an example of what a client asked you to do without naming the client. I'd love to know about it. I'm sure the audience does as well. Can you tell us one strange thing, please?
Yeah, okay. So there was a unconventional brand in terms of a building material company, and they really got fascinated by metaverse. And somewhere, after seeing a lot of our tech demos and all, said, "Can I be the building material supplier to all the people who are building their space on metaverse, and how much can I sell it for, and all that?" I mean, while it may be an interesting idea from a theoretical concept, I said you will still need to move the product out of your warehouse. So this doesn't take away the fact that your product is sitting in a warehouse and you still need to move that. So let's not stop. Let's continue to focus on that. So I hope nobody from that company is listening. They will know what I'm talking about. But it was funny. So it's like that. So even from that matter of NFTs, right? I mean, as an idea, it might have a lot of sense, but the way that brands started pushing and creating their NFTs and expecting, people to spend a lot of money, it's just that, right? Like, may find your own space. Don't forget that you still need to move your inventory. You still need to sell. You still have to pay your bills. So while riding a new wave, let's not forget the core areas of focus for a business. So, I mean, I think broadly, I mean, there's just lots and lots of things happening, but I'm just touching up on some high level thoughts, especially in the interest of time.
Sure, Sanjay. Thank you for highlighting the importance of staying grounded and focusing on fundamentals while so much happening. Great. Yeah, Prantik, would you share from your view?
Yeah, sure. Borrowing from Sanjay's sort of chain of thought, I think every year, again, irrespective of markets being up or down, those things are not in your control. I think where we try and sort of sit with our clients or even our internal staff is, marketing is a discipline, right? So, I mean, it's just important to again zoom out once in a while because, as Sanjay was saying, there's so many new things, innovations, etc., coming up. I think one should have that discipline, whether on the client or agency side, to fundamentally say, what's our purpose and relevance to our business. Ultimately, all of us are part of businesses or we run businesses. And to me, whether you're a metaverse company or a chicken rice stall in Singapore or a salon, I mean, to me, it's very clear, VC funded or otherwise, the formula is same, profit equal to revenue minus cost. So, and I think it's very important to sort of understand that if that's the core purpose, that ultimately we are in business to make money, whether today or a path to profitability, whatever, where can marketing help? Either marketing has to help you increase revenue or decrease cost, right? I mean, to me, I want to keep it very simply. So whether it's metaverse or chat GPT or whatever it is, I think that focus on the fundamental is critical. And hence, to me, that zero-based budgeting principle is always useful so that you can just go back and say, hey, what should we do, not do? Have that sort of concerted discussion, with your CXO board team. For example, one of our clients, they are sort of ultimately saying, what, let's focus on what is the purpose of marketing. Can we relook at data, or if you don't have all the data sets, can we work towards understanding, at least start getting data points of what is my CAC, what is my customer lifetime value? Because very often we chase the shiny object. One of the things about our industry is we start falling in love with the award campaigns and the award ceremonies and which ads are giving awards, etc. There's too much focus on the sexiness. But while that is good, that feels good, but I think a lot of marketers till date don't even understand how to sort of get a sense of what is my total cost of acquisition. And it's not just the ROI, right? Advertising is one spend. You have people spend, process spend, technology spend, media spend, tool spend. So I think understanding what my overall total cost of acquisition for a customer is, and once I've acquired a customer, how do I milk that customer, so to speak, from a customer lifetime value? And then what is my CLV to CAC ratio? Then I have a better understanding, saying, okay, otherwise it just becomes so much about top line. Let's spend on ads, let's do TikTok, let's do Facebook, Twitter, what have you. But unless you have that economics, unit economics understood, and this is not just for VC-backed businesses, this is for anyone and everyone. I think marketers just have to be way more accountable in good or bad times, and that discipline is where I would start any year. And 2023 all the more, given the funding winter, public market, different sort of environment that we operate in, right? So that's one. Secondly, I think, look, whilst you sort of looking at that fundamentals, I think there is a rationalization. For example, and this is taking a leaf from that first point is, for example, one of our clients, they're sort of rationalizing, look, we have invested in so many tools, CRM, loyalty, etc., etc. Just a simple basis, practical exercise of rationalizing, how many tools are we actually using? How many accounts are dormant? What can we do more with? Again, just having a good sense, because in the good times, when there is funding, when things are, rosy, you probably overspent on too many tools. I think just having a rationalization exercise will also help. Third is, yes, it's whilst you want to rationalize, you also want to sort of, at least be aware of what's happening out there. And I think genuinely, I believe, whilst yes, metaverse, NFT, etc., there's a lot of noise. The signal to noise ratio is less. I am generally a believer that automation and I think, has a lot of interesting use cases. So I would not start with, hey, let's all start using Lensa and AI and start. Yes, try it out by all means. I would always start with business use cases. What are my use cases? Where can a chat GPT or a Lensa or a Midjourney help me? And let's use the tool to solve the use case, as opposed to, let's again, this is the new metaverse or the new NFT equivalent of, what we were sort of talking about 2 years ago. Let's not chase the shiny object. Let's look at the use case. And I'm an absolute big believer that automation, whether it's marketing automation, MarTech, CRM, or using chat GPT for better copywriting, or for example, a client has started sort of saying, hey, can I use chat GPT equivalents for finding email newsletter headlines, and then test out where the open rate is high. That to me is an interesting conversation. I don't think AI on its own will change the world. It's people who start using AI for better use cases. I think that's where I would be looking out for. So and the last point there is, whilst we get into that, AI domain, this is another maybe 5-10 year journey. I think the word to me is ultimately, what are we using AI for? Automation, efficiency, effectiveness, right? So it has to ultimately help the financial measurements I spoke about. It should reduce your cost of acquisition. It should increase your CLV. At the same time, one thing I would want business leaders to just think about, it is not an easy problem to solve, that as the proliferation of AI happens, we will have to think about or deal with, things such as deep fakes, things such as ethical AI, because again, all of these tools, ultimately it's garbage in, garbage out, or the biases kick in based on who is developing these. So I think not an easy problem to solve. A lot of people are trying to do this, but this is something we'll have to bear in mind. And let's not presume that this is these new shiny tools are going to be magic wands. So I would definitely embrace them, but from a business use case perspective, and constantly think about how do we sort of take care of deep fakes, content moderation, ethical AI issues, and work with tech vendors or partners to sort of, get onto that journey to solve these problems, hopefully in the coming decade.
Great, Prantik. Surely, I think, as you said, from business objective to measurement, that cycle will continue to remain important, whether it's good and bad, and even more in bad. But having discipline, even when everything is good, makes you stand apart. Great. Yeah, Rajiv, would love to hear from you. What do you recommend? And we have already started touching the next part, and we can, I think, do that as well. But yeah, while we get into specifics, go ahead, Rajiv.
Sure. So I think emerging trends from 2023 may or may not pan out till 2030, right? They are still emerging trends. So we have to look at it from that perspective. But I definitely think AI will pan out. The way it's moving right now, the amount of investments it is making. And not only will it pan out, I think it will disrupt this advertising and marketing industry completely. So 3 or 4 days ago, Martin Sorrell, who's the founder of S4 Capital, earlier founder of WPP, was at Davos, and he said that AI-led media planning and buying is going to disrupt the holding company. He is the founder of one of the holding companies, and I think with the amount of data he has, both as still shareholder of WPP and now founder of S4 Capital, I sort of agree with him wholeheartedly. But will it do it in the immediate short term in 2023? It may not be so. Will it do it over the next 5 to 7 years? Most definitely so, right? The other emerging trend is, I believe, more and more clients, given the market scenario for most of the businesses globally, and given how pandemic put digital at the center of a business's focus, will take back control of their digital media spends and ROAS, ROI, data, whatever you call that, right? I believe marketers in the next 12 to 24 months will take serious steps in taking back control. Now that will look very different in different countries and in different shapes or form. One of them will be having direct contracts with Google, Facebook, and all the programmatic partners on the media side. Second, having or building systems, processes, tools, platforms that give them real-time data access on their spends, ROAS, bottom line, funnels, whatever. Third would be connecting these data points. Now, they may do this by getting a McKinsey on board to do some transformation, or partner with some martech ad tech stack tools, but this is going to happen, or it's going to be a emerging trend in 2023 and going to continue at least for the next 2 to 4 years in my view, because digital is no longer an advertising medium. It is a business channel now. It always was, but given the spread or the percentage of digital ad spends that's growing exponentially globally as well as in India, uh, by 25, 26, 27, every market digital is going to be the majority medium, right? So clearly you are looking at it being a business channel, it being it's your store, it's your outlet, as well as it's your promotion for your outlet, right? And given that it has data, every marketer will want to become a data driven marketer who can draw a straight line from his spends to his return on investment, so as to say. In terms of and beyond these emerging trends, I definitely think there are consumer-led emerging trends, which are you know uh, generative content, generative stuff. Where think about it this way: AI is moving ahead on the consumer side. Uh, till now, creators in the influencer economy were those who could create content creatively. Now anybody with an AI tool and a prompt can become a creator, right? In our days, and Pradeep, you may remember this, and I know I make us, both of us, sound old, but WordPress was like a tool for the creators, right? We could now publish content and become a publisher. Well, guess what? You don't even need to create content anymore. You can create all sorts of content through an AI prompt. I believe that's an emerging trend, and that's going to scale and explode the volume of content. And deep fakes is also another part of it, right? I mean, there is already a Tom Cruise lookalike who's extremely famous on the internet. If you've not watched him, you must watch him. It's exciting, right? And so on and so forth, and what all that kind of technology can do. So those are the emerging trends. I also believe one final trend will be, which has started in 2023 and which is going to continue to do, is clients will unify and simplify uh, what they are doing. So they'll unify all their data, dashboards, reporting, stacks, all of that, and they will simplify their workflows because it's getting too complicated with the plethora of ad platforms, offerings, and everybody trying to sell them some new thing, so as to say. Quickly, do's and don'ts. I think, in my view, depending upon who we are talking to, but if we were talking to clients, I would say take back control of your marketing and advertising. Your agency can be a consultative partner, but it cannot be a partner you blindly trust, because your business is your business, and you need to have what exactly Prantik was saying, right? You need to have those numbers on the top of your head. Those are your business numbers. They are not digital advertising numbers anymore, right? They pertain to top funnel, bottom funnel, but that is your business funnel that you are tracking. So that's how I would look at it.
Perfect, Rajiv. Thank you. Now, I think this slide has essentially a lot of questions which are already being asked, and I would structure all of you to take, a minute only. The second part, global recession, I'm sure the answer to that is very clear, and we have discussed enough in this session about staying true to your objective and measuring until end. Uh, and it's possible, it's even more possible. Uh, all of you, I would ask all of you to share for the first point, one use case you would recommend people to consider, say, Chat GPT for, and second, what is your recommendation? One recommendation for people who are looking at starting their career in digital marketing. Just one point on these two areas before we get into more questions, and these are, questions around these topics are already I can see. Yeah, Sanjay, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, I'm only on the first part. I'm going to slightly depart from the question that you asked, but my view just on ChatGPT. So I'm not a kind who's going to be enamored by every new shining object which comes in, and I've taken most of them with a pinch of salt. That let's wait and watch and see exactly what it's going to really do in the long term, or at least in the medium term. But when it comes to the ChatGPT impact that we've already seen, it's not just the current version or how it is behaving, but just the possibility, when you reach this point, the next version and the more impactful version is not going to take another 5 years to come. It's probably going to take another 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I feel, amongst other things, it's going to do a lot of things. But amongst other things, and I, coincidentally, just a couple of days, I had an article I wrote an article which was in Times of India on exactly the same subject, that I feel that it's going to impact a lot of jobs. Okay, and a lot of revolution in the past, a lot of technology has created job stress, but in most of the times, yeah, certain kind of roles got impacted. Obviously, those people had to learn new skills, maybe adapt, and try to do other things. Whether when the internet came or whatever. In the same way, there's going to be a challenge or a lot of roles. It's just I feel this is bigger because the ability of a tool like this is far-reaching. It's not restricted to a certain kind of role that it can immediately disrupt, but it can disrupt a lot. And it's also because a lot of people in the workforce today, unfortunately, are doing things which now in hindsight of a ChatGPT tool, they are doing things which look very kind of basic, monotonous, like compile data, put it together, create a report and give, and earn a salary at the end of the month. Unfortunately, hey, this can be now done by a machine. So it's a large number of work roles that actually do things of this kind across the board, and it's not just in not just in digital. So watch out. According to me, I'm like I said, I'm a rare one to pronounce such big impact, but in this particular case, somewhere I feel this is impactful. If there is a great business which is going to use this, I'm going to put my money on it because I think this is going to be really impactful. So that's one part. Now the second is connected to that. The number three part. Now, ordinarily, when somebody would ask me career opportunities in digital marketing, I would just blindly say there's just ample opportunities. The demand for resources is far higher than supply, and so you need not worry. I mean, whichever part you decide to take up, whether it's data, whether it's creative, whether it's technology, whatever it is, there's enough and more requirements, and just go ahead. And which at a high level continues to be true. Okay, but given this ChatGPT and these kinds of emerging tech, don't restrict yourself to just doing something very basic, because that will earn you an immediate 25,000-30,000 rupees a month salary as you go out today, but it's not securing you for any kind of a decent future. Things are changing rapidly. So whenever any technology impact has caused disruption in the workforce, it's only the ones who have been able to respond better, like respond to change, are the ones who survived. The others faced a lot of stress. Same is going to be here. And to respond better, you need to have more core knowledge, and invest in yourself a lot more to be able to respond better to changing circumstances, which I fear are going to happen thanks to ChatGPT and technology like that. So sorry, a little longer answer than you asked for, but that's my view.
No worries, Sanjay. And thanks, Sanjay. Since we have touched four and we have questions, I appreciate all of you staying long and request all the panelists for another few minutes so that we could cover at least a percentage of questions. Yeah, Prantik, would you share again very briefly on the first and third point?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just keep it brief. Look, the more I think about automation, chat GPT, etc., tools will only get better at, giving us answers, output part of it. And I think the human skill, which is, I think, relatively harder, and I'll connect it to point number three, is I think whether it's newcomers or anyone, all of us, it's about who can frame and ask the right question or better questions, right? So I think what I would to anyone, newcomer and all of us, is to sort of have the ability to question and craft the question. The Googles or the chat GPTs can only throw answers based on what you ask. And we can all talk about the same topic, but if I ask everyone to write the question, we might all frame it differently. So to me, it's a bit philosophical, but I think it's important to really think of contextual relevance about the domain that you want to ask the questions, and eventually how do you frame the question, because it's again based on what you ask, how you ask, the answer is going to be different. So that to me, as you start playing with all these tools, I think it's always good. So for example, my use cases are, I would, let's say I want to craft an email or I want to write a particular copy. I just have fun. Basically, I do it myself and I see what the computer throws out, multiple versions, and just see, just do a bit of comparison and test to sort of get a flavor of it. But to me, the bigger thing is, I think, just getting deeper into whatever domain that you like, whether it's sports, whether it's FSI, financial services, the deeper context that you have, the macroeconomic context, because I think the human ability to connect dots, to ask the right question, to me, I would bet on that, right? So that's something, even for career opportunities, that's something I would always, that deepen your knowledge across various aspects. You just don't have to be, oh, let's become an expert in Google Ads. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't bet on that. Tomorrow, Rajiv would know this better. You may not need too many ad ops people. His RDX platform will sort of do that much better for clients across the board. But contextual relevance, business metrics, understanding macroeconomic picture. So I would want people to have that, what they call the T-shape. Get broader macroeconomic perspective, read and question a lot more. That's one. I think in terms of specific career, the other thing I would say is, especially when you're young, for newcomers, your risk appetite, I would urge, especially in India today or even in Southeast Asia, compared to, let's say, when I started 20 years ago, I would urge people to think of business problems or use cases, be that busybody, observant person, to see, can you start something new? Why does it have to be that you learn something and become an employee? Sure, you could, but I think you at a macro level, the opportunity for newcomers to start today, you don't, I genuinely believe you don't have to wait 10, 15 years, build a network, then start. Yes, everyone's personal economic situation could be different, but I think just at a macro level, the opportunity to start early today, I would take that bet. You're just giving yourself more time to fail, more time to try something out. So whilst to expand your horizons, I would also sort of urge newcomers to find specific problems and think of, can you sort of take the entrepreneurial route?
Great, Prantik, for sure. Yeah, Rajiv, would you share? And while you share, Rajiv, just share. Someone has also asked a question about if you could, share the opportunity of ad tech in the current times, and given your experience, just share that as well, and maybe opportunity for newcomers in ad tech as a space. And by ad tech here, I mean advertising technology, not education.
Of course. Of course. Firstly, I love hearing both Sanjay and Prantik talk about, especially Sanjay talking about the AI, power of AI, and Prantik actually has seen our platform rebid. So thanks for that endorsement, Prantik. I totally agree. I definitely agree with both the panelists. We ourselves have built a generative AI media planner now, and what Sanjay said about all your reports, dashboards being automated. There is no need to compile any reports. That's exactly what the business that I'm in. I'm putting in millions of dollars into that business. My platform does exactly that. So, I put where, I put money where my mouth is, so as to say, where my mind is. All of that, I've put everything behind it. So I totally agree with both of them. In terms of careers or opportunities for newcomers, I totally agree with Prantik. I think you should start your own business. I did that at 20. It changed my life. I am living example of an average person from an absolutely average family background, which average skills and below average IQ, becoming an entrepreneur and making it reasonably well to do, more than what he could have done ever with a job, right? Probably 10x, 20x, 30x, I don't know how many x, and more than that. Just the learning curve of entrepreneurship is such an hockey stick learning curve. If at 20, at a young age, your risk appetite is 200x what it is 20 years later. There is no question about it, right? Life takes away so much from you than it gives you when as years go by. I wholeheartedly endorse, and this country needs more entrepreneurs, right? As many as we can find, good, bad, ugly, all kinds, right? Because and which is why I started the third time as an entrepreneur. It's a painful career path to take. Anybody who thinks that starting a venture second time, third time, fourth time is easy, it's absolute rubbish. Equally or twice as hard, because you need to get done with your old habits and form new habits. It is rubbish that starting three times or fourth time you are a smarter entrepreneur. I am living proof again of that, right? It's harder and harder and harder, but I did it again because it is the learning curve that gives you so much more value than the money you make out of it, right? And you will be, even as a failed entrepreneur, you will be a better 10 times better professional, even as a failed entrepreneur, hopefully, if you learn from it and don't have ego attitude and you reflect on your mistakes, right? Finally, on the global recession piece, my simple statement is it's a cyclical business, right? Business is cyclical. We don't know how long this cycle will last. My guess is you can't change fundamental basics of business or marketing or anything else in life by how the seasons change outside. You can't stop eating the right food just because it's too cold or too hot. You still have to eat food to live. Same way in business marketing, you have to do the right steps irrespective of recession. Marketers who based on recession stop doing branding or start doing more ROI ads and then stop doing ROI when the market is up and start doing branding more are making their brand suffer. I think it's all needed to be done in the right measure, and depending upon where your brand is in which life cycle, and you have to do it irrespective of market scenarios. So otherwise you are fluctuating based on external factors, and your business will always be dependent on external factors. That's my outlook on global recession. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Rajiv. Now we'll take another 5-7 minutes so that we cover more questions, and I have combined questions, and I will ask one question to one of you only so that we get minimum overlap. Sanjay, there are questions around 2023, which channels to look at. If you could share, I'm sure different verticals would have different channels to consider, but if we were to look into B2C and B2B, in your view, what are the channels which have gained importance and one should be proactively looking at, and maybe channels which were popular but have lost importance over a period of last few months, and you could do it separately for B2C and B2B.
Fundamentally things still, the typical channels still address most of the needs of marketers, whether it's Facebook and Google, in their various forms for especially for B2C, also so to some extent for B2B, and maybe LinkedIn for B2B. However, you've got to evaluate for your own vertical. If you're trying to penetrate a deeper market in India now, India is definitely going deeper in terms of tier 2, tier 3 regional vernacular. So identifying, like the shared chats and the mods and all those kinds of networks which are very regional, which can give you good specific, reach for certain kinds of audiences that you want. I'm talking India specific. Or influencer networks. Again, there are individuals, there are different kinds of influencers friends which need to become part of your media mix in a sense. It's really hard to make a very generic statement out of it, but yes, the old ones continue to remain relevant because they still have the reach, they still have the impact that you need. But along with it, for the kind of goal that you have, the kind of audience that you want to reach, whether you're top funnel, bottom funnel, again, utilizing e-commerce spaces, the Amazons of the world for advertising is also big. So yes, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if any particularly high value I was able to give, but that's because I think it's still a very generic question, and hence my answer was also to some extent generic. Sorry.
No worries, Sanjay. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of fundamentals remain same even for channels. Guys, I have also launched a poll. We have a next panel discussion on very relevant topic of content marketing for customer acquisition on February 10th. If you are interested, you can just say yes. We will take care of signing up for you. Prantik, a question to you. Since you've talked a lot about business objectives and measurement, if you could, in a very brief, share what should be the approach for someone who's starting afresh, looking at digital marketing. The first part, how should they look at or maybe define, articulate business objectives, and connected with that, give an example. You don't have to go into depth of everything. Maybe taking one example of an objective, and then what should be associated metrics and obvious or not so obvious tools one can use. I think that would help people look into how can they approach digital marketing in general, because there are a lot of questions around that.
Sure. Look, one particular objective which I sort of really enjoy working on is generally, again, generalizing in Southeast Asia, our clients, big or small, there's a lot of excitement around, like I said, top of the funnel, etc. But what really sort of excites me and where we have sort of tried to differentiate ourselves is the middle or the bottom, right? In fact, I would say post the bottom, retention. So I'll take that retention use case, because most of our clients are like, I want a brand uplift, I want to get a new lead, all of that. But I think the behind the scenes part of it, which is typically the below the line, unsexy part of marketing, I would say if I was someone new, or if that's a sort of use case I would focus on, is once a lead comes in, or once let's say a new e-commerce D2C customer comes in, how do I firstly, the data collection part, right? How am I collecting the data in, let's say, a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce or Mailchimp or whatever? Am I doing progressive profiling to understand or build a better profile of that customer? So CDP platforms, am I sort of getting a single view of the customer across multi-channel? And if I just take that one record of a customer who may have come in through, let's say, email marketing campaign, do I have a well-defined life cycle management, retention sort of a journey, right? Trigger driven, behavior driven, right? So to me, that excites me a lot, because again, acquiring a new customer, whether B2B or B2C, is always hard, because typically, I think we've been spoiled with the VC money, or through these campaigns where you would sort of pay money to acquire a customer. That's easy. You want to pay. Why wouldn't you get a lead or a customer? Question now is, how do I nurture that using technology, using automation, CRM, CDP, using behavior-driven triggers to sort of ensure, how do I sort of get that customer to open their wallet for product A? If I have multiple products, how do I put them into a nurture loop so that they can hopefully buy product B or C, buy more often, buy bigger ticket sizes, hopefully refer customers, which means your NPS score has to be good. So to me, the customer acquisition is not really that exciting, but how do I increase customer lifecycle value? How do I retain? How do I get them into a customer loyalty loop? That is what excites. And today, for example, whether the Mo Engages of the world, the Clever Taps of the world, again, since Rajiv also mentioned about mobile only or mobile first, I think these are very interesting tools that you can use for driving higher retention. And that's an area I would urge people to think more about, because generally a lot of our marketing is so media driven, top of the funnel. I think we've been there, done that, a lot of it. But especially in colleges, schools, or in the early sort of folks who join agencies, I see very little focus on that. And of course, like I said, I have my personal favorite is still, how do I sort of crack organic? Because there's still so much you can do without paid media. It's just sort of good to sort of figure that part of the funnel.
Great, Prantik. Sure. I think you've taken a very interesting use case, and I'm sure all of us are going back with not just looking at just top of the funnel. Rajiv, a question to you about
Pradeep,
technology.
Pradeep, I need
Sanjay, you
to.
have to leave.
I have a flight to catch to the airport, so please don't mind. Thanks
Sure,
so much.
Sanjay. Really, really appreciate. Thank you so much for staying so long, and we have over 100 people staying so long as well. Thanks a ton. Have a safe flight. Talk to you again. Really
Thank
loved learning from you. Okay, take care. We'll just have one more question. Yeah, Rajiv, a question to you. We've been talking, hearing, listening a lot about marketing and technology, and there are so much tools. If you were to simplify leveraging technology for marketing, for someone who is new, what would you advise?
So I'd say any marketer, the first thing you need to do is get all your data in one place. You can do that today. I mean, very simply, you can. There are now prompt codes for Chat GPT for you to take APIs of any tool and export that data into a Google Sheets. In fact, today Google Sheets has its own application creation as well, no code application called App Sheets, right? So whatever you want to create, you can do that yourself. It's not a problem. Uh, First step is get all your data in one place. When I say all your data, your Google ads, your Facebook ads, your organic data, your search console data, your e-commerce data, whatever is your data, wherever it is, get it all in one dashboard and start overlaying that data on top of each other as smartly as you can. Even if you do this as a manual exercise on a weekly basis, you will do yourself a major favor, right? Post that, I think the second step is to use that data to drive key insight for your campaigns, your retention, whatever it is. Even what Prantik spoke about is honestly a little bit ahead. You will need a platform to create automations, and that's where humans cannot reach, right? Humans cannot process 100,000 profiles in 10 minutes and tell you, this is the way these need to be segmented and this is your data analysis. This only machines or platforms, even if you build a rule based engine, can. So my answer would be someone who is new should start with collecting the data, overlaying the data, building insights, and work on one insights per at a time. Because what we try and do is try and grasp everything in one go, which doesn't work very well. Figure out one insight, work on that insight, apply that insight, validate that insight, and then move on to the next one. Typically, in 2 quarters, you will be able to build as well as scale your marketing technology or advertising stack and understand where are the areas you actually need real tools, and you will be able to search them and fit them in that overall stack, so as to say, right? Per se. So this is the way I would approach it.
Got it, great. Prantik, one final question before we end. If someone wants to start as a freelancer in digital marketing, what can someone do? I'm sure there is a plethora of opportunities within digital. We've talked about, being an entrepreneur. Rajiv also highlighted, and I'm sure all of us have that
An
experience.
AI-driven content writer would be amazing. Sorry, I'm stealing
No,
Prantik's.
that's all right. Yeah. So definitely we can just brainstorm on
That's what
what are the
from
opportunities
you
for a
want to be
freelancer.
an independent freelancer today. You can create 10,000 pieces of content and you can just edit them and give it at much lower cost per word using Chat GPT. So if I was a fresher, that's exactly what I would do, right?
Got it. Great. Prantik, what would you suggest? What could be opportunities now?
Yeah, if I look at the Singapore market, this part of the world, this has actually become quite a big trend. Like what Rajiv was saying, people are whether it's copywriting, whether it's using Lensa, etc., design, mid journey. I think there's a lot of sort of copywriters and designers in the industry. Great opportunity. The other that I'm finding in Singapore is they are the sort of and again this may not for freshers may be harder, but again if you really want to get there in a few years, so like I said, right, going back to the basic context of what a client needs, I'm finding some very interesting freelancers, people who have moved from India, Indonesia, who have become that go-to person for a startup or even a big company to sort of
literally answer the question of where do I start? How do I plan? What this community, I saw the survey, a lot of us are from the marketing community. What I've realized, what you and I think is, par for the course, or what is usual for a lot of the businesses, especially B2B businesses, they just don't even know where do I start. Like it could just be something as basic as website, but something to put that plan together, that project manager, something to put that big picture plan is the other side I see, because a lot of businesses sort of struggle there. So either if you want to do the execution work, copywriting, email, email writing, right, testing it out. I think it's such a interesting skill, because writing email is not just about the language, but when you're copywriting, you're taught to sort of test out what's going to drive open rates or conversions, etc. So that you could do. A lot of people are doing that for like ghostwriting for LinkedIn posts, etc. for executives. Or I think to plan the big picture, or to be that project manager to drive the overall marketing plan. That's something I'm actually seeing a lot of freelancers who are doing this for corporates as well as for agencies as well. Because with hiring freezes, you might need to tap onto the freelance community.
Perfect. I think there is tons of opportunities, especially with tools, and content is definitely one area. Design is another. For newcomers, tools like Canva, make things so easy. What like ChatGPT makes for content. So very fast to acquire skills. Just to summarize, it's 4:20 and we still have almost 100 people. That really talks about the value people have got and the importance of this topic. Thank you so much, Prantik. Thank you so much, Rajiv, and Sanjay as well. I will just summarize while we have talked about tools, technologies, trends. I think two key takeaways, even if I look for myself, is I'm sure trends will change, new tools, technologies will emerge, but as a business, fundamentals of marketing, fundamentals of business does not change. It becomes even more important because uh, many of these things, in absence of discipline, become a distraction. So, and with recession and even in the best times, uh, that's one thing you must always have, and look everything inside of that. Like ChatGPT, not for ChatGPT or a new platform just for the platform versus who's your audience, what is your business objective, what are your goals, how will you measure, and then see what can fit in. And if you look at that's from the organization side. If you look at from the individual side, you're looking at career, job. I think exactly that's what you need to look into. Tools will come, they will make things easy. If you are just attached to a platform, you will become redundant soon. Versus if you have fundamental skills of marketing, you know how to understand your customer well, how to define goals, how to define metrics, how do you measure, and more important, how to frame your content. I think if you have those human skills in place, you're likely to grow. I think, and that completes the circle for me as well. Thanks a ton, everyone, and thanks for all your feedback as well. I could see, I think, got excellent feedback as well. Looking forward to having our next panel discussion on content marketing, and hopefully, end of this year, we will come back again and look into how was 2023, and then predicting or speculating 2024. Thanks a ton, Prantik. You sitting in Singapore brought in new perspective, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible. And Rajiv, great connecting with you after a long time. Would connect again to look into what all you've been doing. And everyone else, I know people are from different countries as well. Thanks so much for staying so long. Normally doesn't happen. Thanks a ton.
Thank you. All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Prantik. All the best, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.